Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Trader Merlin Show. It is your weekend edition, trading week wrap-up. I mentioned I was going to have a glass of whiskey today, but medication. Can't mix those two, so it's like a third week in a row, I think, where I'm not going to be drinking whiskey with you guys. I'll get back to normal soon, I promise. But anyway, I'll cheers you some water. Cheers, everyone. It's just not the same with water, is it? Okay, so let's dive in. We got a bunch of different things to talk about. Big Eb enjoying the 195 in a sauna right now. I hope the phone doesn't break up on you. Are you one of those guys that puts the phone outside the window of the sauna and listens to it with your headphones and just watches from inside? They do it at my gym all the time. It drives me nuts. So let me go to the trading week wrap up. You guys can see I kind of did a little psychological chart here, which is this kind of red falling chart right on the hard red edge, and it's kind of at an angle like the screen's falling. I did it on purpose, by design. What was it? What caused the havoc? If I'm not mistaken, I did say this maybe on our Monday show, that we have these periods of calm and then the periods of storm. And here comes the storm again. Going into the weekend, President Trump announcing 50% tariffs on the European Union, and then going after Apple as well, and 25% tariff there. Just kind of crazy stuff from Mr. Trump. And, you look at the graphic here, I got the little EU kind of background going, but what did it do? It caused some pretty ugly moves today. And, we weren't in a bad position yesterday. Let's go back to the S&P 500. We actually held, and in my opinion, going into today, even last night as I was watching this, thought we were going to bounce off this 58.36. So we came down to it, hesitated yesterday, and I really thought that we would move to the upside, but no. We ended up having a nice little break there on the S&P, ended up down 0.8%. And, the question now is, how far is it going to go with these tariff talks with the EU? My guess is they'll come to the table much sooner than China did. Maybe over the weekend we get a nice positive pop on Tuesday, because markets are closed on Monday, and I won't be doing a show on Monday either. But yeah, wild stuff, and not unexpected. Just when it's so challenging, because when do these things happen, right? I knew there was going to be some other announcement like this that's going to crash the markets and push things down, and then he'll come and he'll backpedal and say, okay, well we're going to do a 10% tariff and we're all going to be friends again. So this type of stuff is the new norm. The question is, how far is it going to go? At that S&P chart right now, you do have this unfilled gap that goes all the way back, well, it's not that far, but to May 9th. You have a gap right around 56.85, and that could very easily close. You like that song choice this morning, Big Ab? Yeah, such a great song. So I'm going to try to do it every day, because I do have songs that kind of set up my mood, and that was one that came on early this morning. I was like, I just love that track. Great song. I heard they're halting the market after hours on Tuesday. You mean on Wednesday? For NVIDIA? That'll be a wild one. NVIDIA certainly will be the big news for next week. And there's some interesting news that came out with NVIDIA today, but let's get to one piece at a time. When you look at that euro and the US dollar pair, let's go bring up that euro USD. You had a nice pop today in the euro going to the upside. Now, I expect this to have tremendous amount of volatility. The realistic trajectory of the euro, as you guys can see here, is uptrend, higher highs, higher lows. So it would not surprise me to see this euro rally back up and get close to that 115 mark, which we achieved back on April 21st of this year. Having said that, that means this dollar index, the Dixie, will continue to, that's the DAX. That's not the right one. There's the Dixie. Will continue to move lower. And I've already mentioned this. I think that we'll get down to that 98 level on the dollar index, which would perfectly coincide with that euro moving up to 115. So we got a bunch of things kind of lining up here. Bearish on the US dollar, bullish on the euro, and that's the current trend of it. Again, I don't know when this is going to end, but targeting the EU is, again, not a wise choice. Let's try to be amicable and be diplomatic in our relationships, but now we've irritated the EU. Let's see what happens from there. Now, yeah, very strong Trump catalyst. And again, Margaret, he could very easily come out Monday and say, this deal with China was huge. No one knows more about China than me. But, Europe, I know more about Europe than anyone. No one knows. I've been to Paris. I know it. No one knows it like me. We've reached a deal. Which is very good for both of us. They're our good friends. And he'll patronize them and say how great they are. And then, we'll be back to normal. So, for now, the bearishness is starting to come back into play, at least for the short term. When does it end? Now, hopefully it ends on Monday because I got exercise today on a couple positions. I did not think I was going to get put my shares today, but I got put on 3 different positions, SMCI, MicroStrategy, and United Health. Not that big of a fan of the United Health one, but if we get a nice little pop-up on Monday, we'll be in good shape. All right, I'm going to run through the top 8 here just so I can get that out of the way, and then I'm going to go to a couple other topics. Certainly NVIDIA. I want to talk about nuclear energy, which some of you are really liking your nuclear energy stocks today. Bottom, Bitcoin. No surprise that we had a pullback. I mean, I do expect there to be some pullbacks along the way. It's just how far down. I don't think we'll get back down to that 100,000. Most likely probably down around 105. But we are going into the weekend. And remember, it's one of the only markets that's open all weekend. 25 or 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. It's open. So if you're trading this weekend, don't look at the futures. You're going to want to go out here and look at the spot price, which is BTC USD. You bring that up on most platforms, and there you go. So that's what I would be looking for. We do have this big demand zone down around 95,000. I call it 96,000. Not great. The second one would be a bit higher up on that spot price, which is right here, although I don't put a lot of weight on that one. And that's right around that 102 to 103 level. I know, it was my fault. I'm starting to become like Jim Cramer. Heaven forbid I should be like Jim Cramer. Yeah, I did go out there and say all-time highs, and we literally tiptoed across it, Margaret. We went above it just by barely a couple of points, maybe 20 or 30 bucks into uncharted territory before having a significant retracement. But not as bad as Cramer. Thanks. I'll take that as a compliment. I think if you were to look at the trades I've done, my track record isn't as bad as his either. Now, he's got a horrible track record. I guess the benefit of time would be on his side, where he'll just say, well, I would have held that for 15 years. And look, over 15 years, it's gone up. Oh, Jim Cramer. So that was your worst performer out there was Bitcoin. Rather disappointing. I kind of expected Bitcoin to have a blow-off moment. So, for example, when you break through something to all-time highs like this, quite often there's just a huge move because no one knows where the overhead supply is. Anyone using supply and demand is difficult because there isn't anything off to the left-hand side of your chart. This is all white space. So usually when you break all-time highs, you get a nice big move. And I thought we'd hit 115, maybe 120 within the next couple of days, but that sell-off today did not help at all. And of course, it took a little bit of profits away, but I'm not concerned at all. I still maintain my target. Technology bore a brunt of the pain today. Overall, down 1% for the Nasdaq 100. If we go and look at the culprits in the major Magnificent Sevens here, Apple. Of course, I actually thought Apple would be hit a lot harder than this. It's only down 3%. So Apple on the day, when you're going to get a 25% tariff slapped on some of your imports, that's obviously going to hurt business. And Trump citing that he wants Apple to manufacture those phones in the United States. Can you guys imagine? What I think that this is an iPhone 15, I think. It's like $1,000. If the phone today, made in China and Taiwan and these other countries, cost $1,000 to make, how much do you think it would cost to make this phone in the U.S.? Same item, same level of quality. How much do you think it would cost to make that $1,000 phone in the United States? Are we talking same price? Is it double? I certainly think it would be more. Yeah, it's a 2,000, 2,500. I certainly think it would be more. Maybe not 2,000. I mean, that's a. I mean, labor cost is big. Most of you saying double that cost. Yeah, it sounds great. Hey, let's make these things in America. Sure, I'm sure Apple's already thought of that. If Apple could make it in the United States and still get better profits, they would do it 100%. So the only way that would really change is if all of a sudden there's like massive tax cuts and breaks for Apple to build a manufacturing facility here in the United States. But yeah, just crazy. Maybe it will last longer. Maybe it will last longer. Is that what you're saying? How much of the phone is labor? That's a great question. I don't know. Great question, Big. I don't know what it costs. I just know that it's ridiculous how much these phones cost. And I, for one, am happy the labor is happening over in China. Who knows what's put in the phone, what kind of spy mechanisms they have on it, and all that kind of stuff. But Trump is right. He's absolutely right. It should be manufactured in America. It should. But I think we all know that would cost us way more. And down the road, ultimately, we would bear that cost. Apple's not going to swallow that cost. Absolutely not. Supply chain is a big issue too. Yeah, and certainly the way that Apple is working, you're bringing many different parts and many different suppliers. If they could do everything in-house all under one facility, that'd be pretty amazing. Kind of like what Tesla and Elon Musk is trying to do, right? Build all custom parts, all designed in-house. And You remove your reliance on third-party vendors for parts. It worked for Tesla. Maybe we should see if there's if Elon Musk wants to create a Tesla phone or something like that. But watch the guy at the phone repair shop pop apart, put together no time. I'm pretty. It's really interesting how they get so much in here. This thing really is a masterpiece. It's really incredible how they build these phones and the technology behind it. But I still am of the belief that if you had the United States was manufacturing these phones, they would be significantly higher in price, and I just don't see that happening. So that was your first part of bad news, was obviously the tariffs. The second part of the bad news was Apple, and that started to drag things down. But Meta was down 1.4, Google was down 1.39, Nvidia down 1.16, Amazon down 1%, Microsoft 1%, and Tesla toeing the line there, staying at down 0.1, down 0.5%. Actually, pretty darn good for Tesla there, I'll be honest. So that's your Magnificent Seven. Some of those certainly weighing down this market, particularly the Apple side, because Apple is the big one of the biggest components in the Nasdaq 100. Let me check and see real quick how that's changed. It was the biggest, and then it switched to Microsoft. 1 second here. I'll bring up the Nasdaq 100 components. I should bookmark this one, slickcharts.com. I know, Margaret, I like this one. So here is the Nasdaq 100 components. So Microsoft is the biggest at 11.7%. Nvidia is 11.24% of the Nasdaq 100, and Apple is 10.23%. So it's dropped here a little bit, but those three generally jockeying for position in that podium spot for the heaviest weightings in the Nasdaq 100. Now, it also makes it important is what's in the Nasdaq or S&P 500. So Apple's the number 3 in the S&P at 5.36%, so 39%. Nvidia is 5.91%. I find it just incredible how quickly Nvidia has just launched to the top of the charts. And then you had Microsoft's top spot at 6.18%. Yes, Margaret. Margaret's posting into chat the show that we did back on, it was December 17th, huh? And we talked about this, on how under the new administration, that there's a likelihood of us finding alternative sources of power. I think we were all in agreement that green energy was going to slowly start to not fade away. Green energy will always be there, but it's not going to get the added support from the government, where I think Trump was going to support traditional coal, fossil fuels, and today signing a bill, signing an executive order, I believe. I just know he did something to push through more nuclear stuff. So some of you who have nuclear energy stocks, was a really nice one today. Let's go bring up NewScale. So I know some of you have NewScale. They were up 19% today on that Trump news. Fantastic run we've had. I think, when we did that show, it was back here. Thank you for putting the date on there, October 17th. So from October 17th, it actually had a pretty significant run, sold off. And a few weeks ago, we were actually talking about how this might be a nice opportunity to buy into these as they pulled back significantly. And I know SMR was a popular one. Oklo is another one. Oops, I'm dyslexia here today. Oklo. I mean, their run over the past month has been absolutely fantastic. From the low point, it was down to $17.42. Today, closing at $48.87, up 23% today. That's a 180% rally in just the past 31 trading sessions. So there is a laundry list here. If you guys are interested, again, Margaret post a link or the description. If you copy that and post it in chat or in my YouTube channel, you'll bring up that video where we spent about an hour going through all the different components for anyone here who might be new and interested in that nuclear space. So that was a good one. I'm all for it. It did pave the way for nuclear energy. It also, in the document that was signed, opened up to new ones like Oklo. So Oklo, and there was a couple others we mentioned that are doing kind of smaller plants, right? Micro plants, if you will, that could be more strategically placed around. And it opened the door for those as well, which I think is why you saw Oklo take such a big jump up today. So great stuff. I'm all for it. I just don't want it built by my house. Andrew says iPhone 15 costs to make $558 in China. In China, not in the United States. Yeah, Lisa. And Lisa, this brings up a big question. Part of Trump's appeal was, I'm cutting through the red tape. I'm opening up these lands for drilling and other causes that may end up being a reality where some national parks or some area opens up and becomes a nuclear site. I personally don't want it, but remember, he talked about getting rid of a large part of the EPA, which I do think we need the Environmental Protection Agency just to, I saw that too, Garfield. It's spinning on my end. Every now and again, I get a little spin. Hopefully it's okay for everybody else. What else I want to bring up? Uh-oh. I wanted to share this picture with you. Hopefully this helps convey the point. I know it's kind of hard to read, but in this graphic here, it's showing the number of power plants that are currently in operation. And for the podcasters, it's going to be really hard to read here. 158 active, currently functioning, these are planned reactors, my bad. Planned reactors, we have 13 planned reactors, and then proposed, U.S. isn't even on the board. China has 158 planned reactors and another 36 that they're in the planning phase on. So this just shows you, for the United States, as such a consumer of energy and power, we should be much more than this. Now, obviously, China makes it a little bit easier with cutting through red tape. They say, nope, we're putting one right here, and that's it. But we actually have fewer proposed nuclear planned reactors, fewer than India, fewer than Poland, fewer than Russia. You would think that we'd be at the top of the list here, but no, that's not the case. And I have a feeling over the next few years, we'll see these bubbles grow and start to see more planning in that nuclear department for the United States. Not just because we want to keep up with the Joneses, but it's clear that our technology that we're using today is consuming significantly more energy that traditional energy systems just can't keep up with. Now, I mentioned, in my perfect world dream, roads would be constructed out of solar panels. So the road would be made out of these panels that collected energy. And when you take the I-10 or the 20 or 50, whichever one goes all the way across the United States from, Los Angeles all the way to Jacksonville, Florida, that road the entire way is collecting solar power. So granted, there'll be periods where it's not collecting, but definitely periods where we're getting tons and tons and tons of that. Germany could afford to shut them down. You talking about their power plants? If that happens, there will be even more severe weather patterns coming. With the nuclear reactors, well, we know that certain events can change the jet stream and kind of move that around. I remember when I was in college, and the professor said something very interesting to me, and I don't know if it's still true. He says, which state gets the most acid rain? I thought about that for a second. I was like, which state gets the most acid rain? And it has a lot to do with currents. So let me bring up and again, this may have changed. High school was quite some time ago, and those patterns may have changed. But let me show you here. Unfortunately, I can't bring up a map of the... I'm spinning, huh? So if you look at the U.S. here, the jet streams come from west to east, and they curled up here above Maine. So when I was in high school, Maine had the most acid rain because it would swirl above Maine, which I thought was kind of interesting. Now, I'm sure that moves around, and I'm sure when we put in things like nuclear energy plants, now I'm getting connectivity issues, guys. I'm trying to change the latency, but I cannot do it when it's when the show's running. Sorry, folks. All right, well, let me move off of that, and we'll just keep going here. Yeah, it's weird. I have an error on my screen that says I'm not receiving enough. No, Lisa, it's not that. It's intermittent. Sometimes I didn't test it today. It should be totally fine. Which we'll just do a test right now just to make sure. I want to make Grok live up to its belief that I have technical issues every day, so I'm going to make sure I have some technical problems today, just to keep Grok honest. Cool. I'm glad. Well, look. I mean, if you look here, I'm pretty fast. That's plenty good. So we should have no problems today in the show. So my computer is acting funny, I guess. All right, good. I'm glad you guys are fine. So nuclear energy, I think, is going to get a bigger discussion here, probably in the next 6 months or so. I think you're going to have Trump push through aggressively the building and development and planning of more nuclear energy. Question is, where do they go? And as was brought up, what sort of environmental issues could these things have? That's going to be a big discussion, which I'm sure will get pushback from one side of the aisle versus the other. Again, we're talking about our one big, beautiful bill. That's going to be a few weeks before we finally get that to pass through. Time to get a Starlink and support Tesla and Elon. I mean, I'm a fan of Elon, especially after listening to his book. I would say read the book, but I didn't read it. I'm listening to the book. I really have an appreciation for what he does and how he does it. He's a jerk. He's a weirdo. Like, he's got bad social skills. But as far as getting stuff done, I don't know too many people that you could put on a list and say that they're better than Elon Musk at just straight getting what seems impossible done. The recurring theme in his book, if anybody has read it, is over and over and over and over again, all these people that they interview, there's always a common comment. And the comment is, it's not possible, Elon. And Elon says, get it done or I'll find someone who will, and do it this way. And they're like, it can't be done. And all of a sudden they finish the project and they go, wow, we didn't think it could be done, but it can be done. So, having someone who has the vision and to push, I would have no problem supporting Tesla or Elon. There are certainly things I disagree with, but only reason I don't want a Tesla is I don't know. I like my truck. I'm definitely a nice truck. And the Cybertruck looks awful. If he came out with an electric truck that looked like the Tacoma or just more normal looking, I probably would go for it. Biggest problem with the reactor is where to dispose of the waste. Correct. Yep. At some point it'd be nice if we could find some way to get rid of it in a safe manner, convert it into something else that has utility. And I don't know what that would be. We've got China on the dark side of the moon. We could just launch it to the dark side of the moon. There you go. That's perfect. Odd socially, touch of Asperger's. Yeah, he definitely has Asperger's. Absolutely. And John, we've all met people like that, right? We've all met people that when you meet them, you're like, in your mind, you're thinking, wow, this person's cuckoo, a little bit awkward. But where they lack on those social and people skills, they make up in other areas and become absolutely brilliant. The one that really comes to mind for me anyway would be Vitalik Buterin, the guy who started Ethereum. I mean, he's got a strong case of Asperger's. Like, he's an odd duck, but he's just brilliant. It's rare, but we've all met him. So one that was soaring today, and we talked about this a little bit in the past, was the U.S. Steel deal. So Nippon Steel was going to buy U.S. Steel, and of course President Trump and Biden, they both said the same thing, that they didn't want Japan to own U.S. Steel. It's just it's like our major steel producer here in the United States. So Trump brokered the deal here, which says that the headquarters will remain in the United States and they will be business partners. I thought that was an interesting one. So just wanted to bring that one up because it had a huge pop today, up 21.24%. There's your chart right there of it, looking pretty darn good. What do you say? Trading a book about Jensen Huang, spelling, author. He's very interesting, but it might be a while. Oh, reading. Okay. I was like, you're trading a book. I'm confused. I'm confused by that one, my friend. So let me real quickly, as we wander through the show here, and obviously I'm scattered because I've just been doing way too much. Let's go MSTR. MSTR had a pretty significant dive today. You can see closing at 369. So as it started falling today, when we got about a half hour from the close and I could see that it wasn't going to rally, I actually sold the 380 calls against it and collected, I can tell you what the premium is on that one. But yeah, I usually don't sell, re-up my calls on that Friday if they're expiring that Friday, but I knew I wasn't going to get exercise at the 380. So I sold I want to get my number right here for you guys. Yeah, I sold the 380s and I collected 950. So that'll knock my dollar cost average down a little bit, but we'll see what happens on Monday. It would be nice if something positive happened over the weekend, some resolution, and get this thing to jump back up. But that one, that was exercised to me today. I also had SMCI. I had the 4050s, and we got up to 4009. I had an order to sell covered calls at 4050 as well. Didn't happen. Didn't get exercised there, and then it broke. And now I also have UNH, which is probably the one I'm most concerned, but I don't have that much of it. I just have a few contracts of it, and that was at 300. And I had an order to sell those covered calls against it before market close, but it didn't fill me. So, at this point, I'm just going, give me a nice gap up. I'll sell some calls against it and see where we end up. But I definitely don't want to hold this for a long time. This one makes me nervous, right? You're assigned some MicroStrategy today too? All right. You know, there's a lot of competitors in that space in doing what Michael Saylor and MicroStrategy are trying to do. These Bitcoin treasuries, they're calling them, where they just sell debt, buy Bitcoin, sell debt, buy Bitcoin, and rinse, wash, and repeat. I will say that at some point in time, I think that there's going to be a problem with that. Right now, I don't see it being that bad. The fractional reserve banking aspect of crypto kind of makes me a little bit nervous. But if we have more and more of these companies issuing debt, buying Bitcoin, and it's not just domestically here in the U.S., it's international as well. You know, I think that adds a lot more buying pressure to the underlying price of Bitcoin, which I think could actually keep us driving up through November. And again, people keep asking me, am I going to sell my crypto this year? The plan is still yes, to sell my crypto in October. If we get a big surge up, and I see Bitcoin get, you know, that 220 mark we looked at yesterday, 250 was my initial target. If it gets up to those levels, not only will I be extremely happy with just dumping my crypto and be fine with it, but it would be following the pattern of historical precedent, which is right around November of this year, it starts to slide, and it'll fall for 12 months. It'll go till November of 2026 and drop 70 to 80%. And in my mind, I sit back and go, okay, what in the hell could cause that? What could cause a 70 to 80% decline in Bitcoin? Well, you know what it could cause it? Unleveraging, deleveraging. These companies like MicroStrategy may get so overwhelmingly leveraged that the prices drop past a liquidation point where they're forced to sell. And once they're forced to sell, then all of a sudden things can come cascading down. Unfortunately, I don't have the chart anymore. CHK. It used to be Chesapeake Energy. I'm pretty sure. Let me just real quickly check here. Chesapeake. Let me go to stocks. So Chesapeake Energy had something similar. Now, they changed their symbol. It was CHK, but they've changed. And the reason I bring this up is there was a period of time where one of the insiders for Chesapeake Energy, Aubrey McClendon was his name. And Aubrey McClendon was buying millions of dollars worth of Chesapeake Energy stock. And he was the CEO. So not only was he buying it with company's money, but he's also taking loans out to buy more of the shares. So what you had was artificially inflated prices. And then all of a sudden, price fell quickly. He tried to buy some more, and then it fell again. And when it fell, it triggered a little bit of margin call on him. When it triggered the margin call, that automatically sells some of his stock position, which did what? It caused more selling. And unfortunately, the chart of Chesapeake Energy is not here. Let me see if I can find Chesapeake Energy. See if there's an old, because it no longer has the same symbols. And by the way, he also committed suicide. So here's an old school chart of it. One sec, I'm gonna bring it up for you. Just want to make sure I get the right thing and show you the right stuff. I accept that. Get that out of there. So here's a good example of deleveraging something. So you guys can see, if I was to block off everything on the right-hand side of this chart, this was 2005, 6, 7. Aubrey McClendon was buying and buying and buying and buying and buying and buying. I mean, I was watching the insider trading sheets going, oh my God, this guy is loading the boat. He had like $500 million worth of his own shares of his company. And then it fell one day. And it could have been orchestrated, right? Do you guys think, just a simple yes or no, let me finish the explanation, and you say yes or no or not possible. When an insider is buying shares of a company, it's public knowledge. You have to disclose it. So if you see that an insider is buying to the tune of hundreds of millions of dollars worth of shares, do you think it's possible for an institution to look at that and go, let's hammer it down because we know someone's over leveraged? You think that's possible? Kenny, might be an all-time doom and gloom story by Merlin. No. It's cautionary note, right? How do we get better? We learn from the past. And it's very possible that institutions gather around, and it could have been a Goldman Sachs, JP Morgan, institutional traders going, dude, Aubrey McClendon's loaded the boat. And maybe he's even borrowing money from those firms. And they they triggered the landslide. This was triggered by like a couple of days drop in price on Chesapeake Energy. And then all of a sudden, they just started liquidating his shares. And every day you'd see, thousands and thousands of more shares come popping in. And I mean, it went from share price, this has got to be split adjusted or something. It looks like 12,000. Now that seems crazy. $12,000 per share down to 2,000 in like a few months. And it was just liquidation, liquidation, liquidation. Michael Saylor may be in that situation. Now, I don't know if the loans he has are collateralized with liquidation prices, or if it's just, here's a loan, pay us back when you get it. So certainly it is possible. And if we get more and more firms like this, especially Michael Saylor every day tweeting out, hey, I just bought another $1.6 billion worth of Bitcoin. Institutions know damn well he's leveraged big time. And again, what could cause Bitcoin to drop 70 to 80%? That's what I'm throwing out there. That's what it could be. It could be that institutions start the landslide by dropping Bitcoin very aggressively. All right. And it's not hard to do. If you want to buy a big block of shares without influencing the market, you go to the OTC market, right? So let's say I'm JP Morgan and I want to get out of, I want to sell $10 billion worth of Bitcoin. I would go to the over-the-counter market where no one sees the transaction, it's just between two parties, right? And I find a person who wants to buy it from me. We make a deal. No one's the wiser. If I want to crash the market and cause absolute panic, it's easy. Coinbase would probably freeze your accounts if you started doing that. But let's go here and look at, let's go to advanced. So here's the advanced platform for Coinbase if it ever loads up, because hey, would Jamie Dimon do that, Margaret? I don't think he's that petty, but it certainly could. Certainly could. There's a thing called the depth chart. And let's say I sold, 100,000 Bitcoin. That's a lot. Well, let's zoom out here. And according to this is the market depth right now on the retail platform for Coinbase. And you can see where my cursor is over here. If I sold 3,282 Bitcoin, if I just sold those at market, it would drop the price on Coinbase to $27,000. So institutions have power because if they want to create an impression, if they want to move the market, they'll go to the retail platform and just start dumping 1,000 Bitcoin blocks and crush this market straight down. If they really want to get rid of it and not have an impact, they'll do it on the over-the-counter market where no one can see what you're doing. So yeah, keep this in mind. This liquidity right here, that's how liquid their retail platform is. It'll only handle 3,300 Bitcoin right now, and that'll drop price all the way to $27,000. I'm pretty sure you could hear the headlines now. If Coinbase, the price of Bitcoin dropped on Coinbase to $27,000, all the other exchanges around the world are going to try to do arbitrage, but they're all going to fall very quickly. That's how you create panic. CEP. Oh, Cantor. Yeah, I don't know what's going on with Cantor. I don't know. Oh, explain the depth chart? Sure. So what this represents is where people are lined up with buy and sellers on a retail platform. Okay, so right here, this is just the really close prices. And you can see this jump up right here. Right here where my cursor is, there's 91 Bitcoin for sale. If I jump it up higher, there's 99. So between here and here is a jump of 7 Bitcoin, and that caused this. This is the cumulative volume on the retail platform. So right here, if you wanted to buy it right now, there's only 0.3 Bitcoin available at the current price, 0.24. And as we go up, you'll see on the y-axis, on the right-hand side here, it tells you the quantity of Bitcoin that if you did a market buy, how far you would push price up. So right here, if I bought 97 Bitcoin right now, you can see the number where my cursor is, 97. If I bought 97 Bitcoin right now on their retail platform, I would drive price up to $108,900. Call it $109,000. So this is a great tool. It's called a depth chart to kind of gauge where walls of supply and demand are. Like look at this big jump here on the buy side. There's 96 available at about 108,000. So someone's got a, that's the buy order at 108, and then it jumps. So right at 108 even, there's about 30 extra Bitcoin. So someone has an order right here to buy 30 extra Bitcoin. That's creating that big wall of buyers. So one thing you can use this for in conjunction with supply and demand would be, I've used supply and demand methodology, I found a demand zone, and lo and behold, it's at $108,000 on this chart. There is a big block of buyers right here because you can see how it jumps. So we could go out here to our Bitcoin price chart. Let's go to BTC USD. And then let me zoom out a little bit because I'm all zoomed in. And we'll put a line right at 108 just for fun. Okay, 108. Oops. Got 108,000. So right there is where there is a block of buying on Coinbase. Now, it's not a huge block, right? It's not like, oh, wow, that is a gigantic amount of shares. But, you know, an extra 30. You can see that the initial drop, we broke it. But ever since then, it bounced here at 108, got really close here. And it feels like that's kind of establishing the floor. So, market, that's how you would use a depth chart. Surprised there are not only buy orders sitting at $30,000 just in case. Oh, there are. I'm sure there are, Jeff. I'll tell you what, if it got back to 30,000, I'd load the boat. Absolutely. Absolutely. On a 5-minute here, this doesn't look good. It looks like a descending triangle, but that was, you know, I just brought this up to show you on how quickly I could move markets. I could create panic in the market. Look at this big wall right here. This goes from 580 Bitcoin to 792. So there's a 200 Bitcoin order right here to sell at 115,000. 115,000 on Bitcoin will be a challenge to get through here. What's the link for the chart? There's no link. This is inside of Coinbase's platform. So if you have a Coinbase account, you go to their advanced platform. So down here at the bottom, this is the beginner platform. Always click that to advanced. And then you'll see right here's a tab that says depth chart up at the top. So this is the normal price chart. And then here is the depth chart. Yep, it's on Coinbase. I know. Other platforms have it as well. Other platforms definitely have it. I don't think I have my Kraken logged in here. 1 second. Let me see if I can log in real quick and show you on Kraken, because most platforms do have that now. It's kind of standard on crypto platforms. All right, let me see. Kraken. Oh, Merlin. Trying to pull this stuff live is troublesome. Yeah, I'm not logged in right now, so I'll pass. Normally I would log in, but I don't want to take up too much time to do it. But you can generally find that depth chart on other platforms as well. And it's simply just called depth chart. Makes it real easy. All right. Let me go back to a question. And Jeff sent these in. Was it Jeff? I thought that was... I'll do 2 questions here. And then what time we got? Perfect. We got plenty of time. So I apologize for Jeff. I think this was from Jeff. Actually, part of me thinks it was Chad. Chad, if you're here, I think this actually was your question. I just didn't rename it. It deals with a couple different companies that I think you wanted to look at. Big Eb, have a great weekend. Jeff says, can we take a look at Kellogg's? Why the huge gap up? What's your take on a gap fill? Out of all the food companies out there, it's clearly performing the best. KO looks good, but all other food companies look like dog do. It was an icon there. He didn't put dog do, but I couldn't bring the icon over. The emoji wasn't there. So let's go look at Kellogg's. Let's bring this up into a daily time frames where I like to look at things. So you're talking about this big gap here. Not sure what caused that. Certainly it happened right after earnings, and I don't follow Kellogg's. But this is probably a deal, a partnership, some sort of, there's a wide variety of different things that it could be that. In this case, you notice it happened right after earnings. So earnings were right here where my cursor is. It gapped up and then had a couple runaway gaps. Do I believe the gaps fill? Yes, I do. Oh, this isn't Kellogg's. This is Kellanova. I thought Kellogg's was K. Yeah. Sorry, I was in the wrong one. You actually had Kellogg's, but now I'm confused here. I know, Lisa. I caught that, but the symbol K is Kellogg's symbol. It's always been K. But in this chart here, I don't see a gap on it. I don't see the gap on it. So I have a feeling that you were on Kellogg's, which is the symbol K, but now it's Kelnova, and you have these unfilled gaps. So before we move on from this one, you have a lot of interesting unfilled gaps here. Look, I don't know what Kelnova does, but this is so easy for me to put a trading plan around it. I'm going to go here to the lowest point in this sideways move. It's been moving up, but pretty much sideways since August 14th of last year. So if this thing breaks below 80 bucks, I think that gap's going to fill. So maybe I should set a little bit an alert on this bad. But let's set an alert across the line, and I'll have it do once per bar. So now it'll pop up on my screen when that happens. So there we go. We got an alert. Now I need to remember that happened. So I'm not sure which chart you're looking at here, Jeff. Unfortunately, you're talking about Coca-Cola. It's hard to bet against Coca-Cola, and I need something to mix with my whiskey every now and again. I got to use Coca-Cola, but technically, if you look at this chart, we're in an uptrend, right? But it looks really messy right now. I don't see any real clear trend here, so I wouldn't feel like I'd want to buy Coca-Cola. When I'm looking to buy a food company, it's definitely going to be at extremes, like when things really get crushed. McDonald's, right? McDonald's looks better than Coca-Cola. It's got that. At least it's got a more solid uptrend to it. But Jeff, I don't know the Kellogg's that you're referencing, because if I look at Kellogg, which it's funny, it shows up here, K is Kellogg on the Swiss stock exchange, but the United States one, it's KLG. And I don't see a gap here that's appealing at all. And this chart doesn't look good. So let me know, Jeff, maybe add some clarity to maybe I'm looking at the wrong thing for you, but yeah, it doesn't look that good. Are there options on K? Kelnova? I mean, I can go look here because I have a platform right here. Let's go K. Oops. Yeah. Give me the chain. Let's pipe in K here. So there are options for Kelnova. Not much. I don't see any open interest on here. I don't know if I can add open interest on this platform. So there's definitely options, but you notice you got no bids and no asks here for the 7750, so it tells me this thing's probably extremely low volume. So I wouldn't look at those options. And the last one is this question I got from Daniel. Daniel, this is a great question, and it's really difficult. He says, if you had to convince Warren Buffett to buy Bitcoin, how would you explain Bitcoin's intrinsic value and its future growth? So first off, I'm not trying to convince anybody of anything. I guess my objective when I discuss Bitcoin with people is just to make them understand that there is a different money coming. Our monetary system is changing and it's upgrading. Warren Buffett is used to the fiat currency world, which is the dollar, the euro, the yen, and those can be printed into infinity and very easily manipulated by any government in the world. With Bitcoin, you have a finite amount. You have a definitive fixed amount. It unlike any other asset class in the world or any commodity in the world, we don't know how much silver there is, but we call it scarce. We don't know how much gold there is, but it's scarce, right? We don't know. We know to the exact Satoshi, the exact increment, exactly how much Bitcoin there will be. So when you use this as a monetary system, it removes all of the ability to create fake money, to devalue it, to manipulate it from an outside party. To me, that's part of its intrinsic value, is the value of having an item that you can't fabricate more of. The other side is it also prevents any illegal activities because the network itself is designed in a way that erroneous transactions never make it in the system. It's a ledger of every record that's ever happened. So if all of a sudden I send an order with a fake Bitcoin number I just made up, it's going to go, well, there's nothing there. That wallet doesn't even exist, or there is nothing in that account, or you don't have the key. Get out of here, beat it. And they get booted off. So I think it's an accountability network. It's a truth network. It's a trustless network, meaning I don't have to look at Bitcoin and go, oh, I really hope that this one miner is not a bad person. They get removed right away. Then you have tens of thousands of participants. So it's like a decentralized trust monetary system that they're not going to print more of. So you're not going to have value manipulation like you do with the dollar, the yen, the pound, the euro. So that's part of the explanation. The other explanation would be that it represents the future of digital money. And you're like, oh, well, I could use my cell phone and send Venmo. You can, but it goes through a bank. And that bank can censor your transaction. That bank can freeze your transaction. They can halt anything. Now, you guys may have heard today, or a couple of days ago, there was a huge hack. I think it was 200 million or 500 million. Let's go to here. It's called SWI. So SWI is one of these brand new up-and-coming blockchains, super fast. Everyone loves it. I'm a fan of it as well. But they got hacked. And one of their smart contracts was hacked, and insiders stole a whole bunch of money. We're talking hundreds of millions of dollars. What they did is this blockchain froze their wallets. So it does tell you that even though something might be decentralized, it's not impossible to censor transactions. What happened is the SWI company that makes SWI blocked the address. And that's a problem. Because with Bitcoin, no one individual can block an address. So let's say, for example, Jeff is doing something illegal. We've hacked it, and he's done a big hacking thing, and he puts all the money in a wallet. If we know that that's Jeff's wallet on SWI, like they did today, they will freeze his wallet, and that money's dead forever. Just dead forever. With Bitcoin, they can't freeze your wallet. The only way that they could freeze Jeff's wallet is if I propose to the community and say, hey, everybody, we need to block this wallet for this reason, this reason, this reason. And all of the miners in the community will vote. And if the miners agree, there you go. We'll block that wallet. So you still can block things, but it's a much more democratic crowd decision process as opposed to one person. So I think that's part of the value as well, is knowing that it's outside of government control. It can't be seized. It can't be counterfeited. It can't be copied. It can't be manipulated. I mean, other than people buying big quantities of it at a time and dumping. That's the only... And as far as future growth, I would contend that there's probably only a few million people that are using the system today. But with the rate of adoption and the way that you see people using it, like El Salvador now, it's a legal tender down there. You have other countries around the world using their smartphones as their bank. Why not use Bitcoin? Because it truly is a borderless payment system. And all someone has to do in any other part of the world is say, I'll take Bitcoin. Done. All right? There's a lot of places that won't take US dollars. Well, the reality is most places accept US dollars. When I was in Jamaica, I bought Jamaican dollars and I was trying to pay with those. I'm like, no, we don't take that. We want US dollars. Ask Trump to explain Bitcoin in 5 minutes. Margaret, that's easy to do. No one knows more about Bitcoin than Trump does. No one. Anyway, that's kind of how I'd explain it, Daniel. It's so early that other payment systems are trying to replicate it, but the news that came out today that JP Morgan, Wells Fargo, Bank of America, and other banks are now going to create their own stablecoin. That should tell you right there that that's where money is headed, is digital. They're creating a stablecoin, which I've talked to you guys about in the past. That stablecoin will only be used by banks, and it's a way for them to send money back and forth. Normally, it takes days to send certain transactions back and forth to banks. So there we go. Create your own blockchain, keep it just for banks. That will probably, my guess is you'll see it by the end of the year. You'll be able to deposit your money at your Wells Fargo ATM and select whether you want it to go into dollars or stablecoin. So my final point here for Warren Buffett would be future growth. You're watching something just beginning to gain adoption at the most. I mean, you and I think it's big because we talk about crypto a lot, but the rest of the world just knows what Bitcoin is. They don't know oracles. They don't know how smart contracts work. They don't know stable coins and the different architecture of stable coins. I do. And that technology is growing leaps and bounds every day. Plus, we have the regulatory landscape to push it through. So that's why. That's why, Mr. Buffett, you should have some exposure to digital assets. And if you don't like Bitcoin itself, maybe you should look at the companies that are extracting Bitcoin out of the code. Which would you choose at the ATM? Great question, Margaret. That's a great question. Which would I choose at the ATM? If I'm keeping money at that bank, I'm going to choose whichever one is going to pay me the most interest on it. Right? So if they say, JP Morgan Chase right now is 0.01%, 0.01. But if they said you get 1% if you keep it in our stablecoin, it's a no-brainer. I'll put it in the stablecoin, right? I'm value shopping. And if I can get a better yield by keeping it on a digital dollar, great. And again, the good news here is, if this does go through and they have their own blockchain that's stable to $1, the argument's going to come up, this should be FDIC protected as a normal cash deposit. And then we have insurance on it. Then I think adoption comes flying in even more. You think he institution like his will ever get in? Are you talking Jamie Dimon and JP Morgan, Daniel? Absolutely. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. You're talking Buffett. No, I don't think Buffett will. I think Buffett, well, he's stepping aside. Does his company maybe get involved with a little bit? Maybe, but that's not their core competency, right? I'm pretty sure in handing over the reins to the new CEO, there'll be some directive, generalization of companies we want to stay in, industries we want to stay in, and I don't think that's going to get broken. It's just too much of a legacy company to break tradition now. I mean, I could be wrong, but I don't think Warren Buffett would. I mean, it would make my day if he said he's going to buy $300 billion worth of Bitcoin like he has sitting in the side, in the is behind him. All Trader Merlin fans get a free trip to the Cayman. Could you wait till next weekend till my back's better, Jeff? Actually, no. With that kind of money, I just have a personal masseuse all day long. No, let's do it. And as Bitcoin critics often say, what problem is Bitcoin actually solving? And that's what I just explained, in my opinion. It solves the problem of banks. A bank takes your deposit, charges interest to other customers to borrow your money, and they pay you nothing, right? So that's stupid. It's like me going through and saying, I'd like to borrow your shoes, and I'll pay you $1 a day for it. And you're like, okay, fine, sure. I take your shoes and I lend it out to somebody else who's paying me $15 a day for it. I make $14 worth of profit for free per day. Well, crypto's no different. Your money sitting in a bank is being put to work by the bank. The bank is making money off of your money. So why not be your own bank and circumvent that type of system? You can now take your Bitcoin or your Ethereum and go out to lending protocols, and you can lend out your cryptocurrency and earn yield on it that way. Be your own bank. So there's a certain element of threat to the traditional system. And that's what I'm excited about. Okay. If Buffett is buying banks and he's investing in crypto, I guess you're right in some extent. Certainly the digital asset part. You don't have to be crypto specific, but the digital asset side of it, which is going to be digitizing ownership of assets, that is absolutely a monstrous industry that we're barely even scratching the surface. And I think it's going to get better and better and better. Okay, as far as Monday goes, guys, I'm not doing a show Monday. I'm taking some time off. Well, not time off, the day off. On Tuesday, things get back into action. I'll bring up your earnings calendar or economic calendar for Tuesday. You can see here for the U.S., we've got durable goods orders. That's a decent one. You've got Case-Shiller Composite 20 Home Price Index. And then later on in the evening on Tuesday, you have New Zealand coming out with a rate cut. 25 basis point is the expectation there that they're going to drop. And earnings front, there's really nothing going on the first part of next week. I think Tuesday you got a couple smaller little names. Really, it's all about Wednesday. Wednesday is the hallelujah popcorn trade of the day, which will, of course, be NVIDIA. Now, as far as Tuesday's earnings, for those of you who want to know what they are, you have Okta, AutoZone. I'm going to separate these by market cap. PDD Holdings, no idea, it's an ADR. AutoZone, Bank of Nova Scotia. So there's really nothing here. Heidelberg Materials, ja, natürlich. And that's pretty much it. So boring stuff there, but yeah, this is more Mr. Buffett should buy Fartcoin. Pretty sure that's not going to be high on his list. I mean, is this really? I can't believe I'm getting this ad right here. Like, does me saying that I'm old warrant me now getting mega brief diaper ads? Man, it's going downhill when they target marketed you with diaper ads. Jeez Louise, way to start my weekend. Nah, wearing diapers. I'm not wearing diapers. Not yet anyway. Maybe my German Shepherd will. Anyway. All right, everybody. Sorry, I digressed there. I was a little bit off topic. But anyway, I hope you guys have a fantastic weekend. Go do something fun this weekend. And as I always like to do on Monday, I'd like to go be quiet, go somewhere and just kind of reflect and think of all the privileges that I have and all the people who've died for those privileges. I know some of them might be family members of yours or people have died in the line of service. And Monday really should be one of those melancholy days where you're like, okay, I'm alive and I'm doing great and I've got all these resources and things to do on a daily basis, but there's people who died for that, right? So it's a day for them. We'll raise a glass for all the veterans out there. I'll be at the beach. Yep. So that's it for me. You guys want me to discuss anything? Email me at tradermerlin@gmail.com. You can just click that send me an email there on any topic, criticisms, whatever. Hope you guys have a good Memorial Day and a day of remembrance, and I will see you guys on Tuesday. Take care, everyone.